Hi everyone, are you an onion lover or hater? Please, you need to listen to this till the end. This is an onion tale, and I'll tell you why onions make you cry. Stay tuned. Long ago, all the vegetables lived together peacefully in Vegeta Kingdom. There were lots and lots of them: carrots, onions, broccoli, asparagus, lettuce, cabbage, and the rest. Some were orange, some were green, purple, red. I mean, they all had different colors. One day, some male tourists were passing by. They smelled something they had never smelled before and decided to check what it was. They followed the direction of the smell and it took them to the Vegeta Kingdom. They were amazed when they saw the vegetables. One of the tourists pulled out a carrot from the soil. He rinsed it with some water before taking a bite from it. It tasted so good. The other tourists tasted it out of curiosity. Everyone loved the taste. They decided to uproot all the carrots that were there. They decided to uproot all the carrots from the soil to take back to their wives. The vegetables were arranged in alphabetical order from A to Z. When the tourists arrived at the location where they were camping, they joyfully showed the carrots to the women and told them to add it to the pot of meat on the fire. The meal was one of the best they had ever eaten. That night, the men had a meeting and they decided that they would go back the next day to find out whether the other vegetables were also edible. On arrival at the Vegeta Kingdom the next day, the vegetables recognized them as the people that had uprooted all the carrots the previous day. They began to panic. After taking a quick glance at all the vegetables, the men decided to taste the tomatoes. They tried it and it was juicy and sweet. They took it back home and once again the woman prepared a very delicious meal, far sweeter than the previous day. The cycle continued. Every day they would go back to the Vegeta Kingdom to harvest a new type of vegetable. One night, the onions decided to hold a meeting. The aim of the meeting was to find means of protecting themselves from getting uprooted. One of the onions came up with an idea. They all agreed with it and in the night, they sneaked out to execute their plans while the other vegetables slept. One by one, the onions jumped into the propane-thiol X-oxide sulfuric river, also known as the River of Tears. This river existed not far from the Vegeta Kingdom, but no vegetable had ever been there before, except one of the onions, the one that came up with the plan. The chemical in the river would make your eyes water and bring out tears if you ever try to cut or peel the onions. This chemical entered deep into their cells. They returned back to the Vegeta Kingdom before the other vegetables woke up. In the afternoon, the men arrived. What the onion family did not know on time was that the river had also given them different colors. Now they were very colorful. Some were red, others were brown, purple, green, yellow, while some of them maintained their white color. This variation in color made them very attractive, and without thinking twice, the men decided to pick the onions. They knew that their wives would love the color variation. Someone picked the purple one and took a bite. Immediately, his eyes watered and he began to cry. The other men laughed at him. They thought he was crying because of how delicious the onion tasted. So someone else decided to take a bite. He picked up another color, the yellow colored onion, and after one bite, his eyes also began to water. They had never experienced anything like that. They decided to cast their votes on whether they should take the onions or leave them. A higher number of the tourists voted for them to take the onions. They knew that their wives would be impressed by the lovely colors and the many inner layers. So with tears in their eyes, they uprooted all the onions and started heading back to their camp. When they arrived at the camp, the women were surprised to find all the men in tears. They thought that something bad had happened. When the men narrated their experience, all the women started laughing. They thought that the men were just exaggerating. When it was time to cook, the women noticed that the onions was truly making their eyes water. But then it also had this very nice smell. They continued cooking. It made a very fizzle sound when it was added to the pot of oil, and it gave off a very inviting aroma. So despite the tears, they continued with it. When the meal was done, the pot of stew they prepared was one of the best they had ever eaten. In fact, they also observed that after a long time of cooking with the onions, their skin started to glow and they felt healthier. The teardrops were truly worth it. From that day, they started adding onions to all their meals. That might not be the plan that the onions had in mind, but also the onions were glad that they could put a smile on the face of anybody that ate any food prepared with onions. So my dear people, the benefits of onions are plenty. The other day I was at a restaurant and then I saw someone picking out the onions from their food. And it got me angry because do you know the tears that went into the making of this food? If you belong to that category, I hope that after listening to this story, from today on, you'd start to eat your onions. Please subscribe and also comment below and let me know whether you're an onion lover or hater. Thank you.